Alright, so we're gonna take a look at some of the religion that we've seen throughout the course of this semester in the literature that we have read and kind of how it has affected the writing for that time. So we're going to start off with the exploration, discovery, and invasion period with Cabeza de Vaca. What I found most interesting about this time in our semester was how little I had actually known about him beforehand. And I actually found his works to be more compelling than that of Columbus and possibly more beneficial due to the amount of contact he had with the natives and traveling across the lower coast of the U.S. And what I found most interesting in his piece, and probably what stuck with me the most, was this idea that he became a faith healer for the natives. And I have the quote here that I found in our reading that talks about how he formed the cross over the head of an Indian who I guess had a headache at the time, and how the sickness had left them. And later on that night, more people had come to be healed from this Christian faith. And what I find funny about that is they weren't even Christian. And they really didn't even know about the faith, but somehow it had magically worked. So I found the time of De Vaca's spread of Christianity or his effect on the Indians to be really interesting. And also how he felt that he was like this gift from God, I felt, as I was reading his work. So then we move on to settlement and Cotton Mather. He was a Puritan minister, and he was pretty responsible for leading the Salem witch trials. And this also was another very interesting part in the semester for me, because the Salem witch trials seem to have been so known, but what we know about them is actually pretty wrong. Well, at least general knowledge is wrong. For instance, Hill not actually being located where Gallows Hill is said to be located. But what I found most memorable about Cotton Mather's work were the evidence that they were able to get these witches for. So I pulled out a quote here that I really remember. And this was talking about a woman who was claimed to be taken to one of the witch meetings and to have seen this witch meeting happening. But we really have no proof of it. We just have her word, which we see a lot throughout this time period and throughout the Salem witch trials, which is responsible for the deaths of a lot of innocent people. So then we're going to move into the Great Awakening with Jonathan Edwards, and he was also Puritan, and he wrote a very powerful sermon, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God. And the quote that sticks with me the most for this sermon is relatively early in the piece, and I kind of think about this with my own life after reading it. Not that I'm religious in any way, but I feel like it's just good knowledge. So I'm going to read it. Another thing implied is that they are liable to fall of themselves without being thrown down by the hand of another, as he that stands or walks on slippery ground needs nothing but his own weight to throw him down. So, in a non-religious context, that is basically you're responsible for yourself. But in this context, we're learning that you're not inherently good, that God holds you up, and at any moment he can let you down unless you are all to him, and we can't even really be that way. And hell is described as something brutal and horrible, and we're basically God's will. I mean, we can't really control that, so we need to be as pure and as strict to our faith as possible, and that is part of you carry yourself, and you are responsible for your fate at the end. So, move on to the Revolutionary War with Thomas Jefferson. He was a very powerful man, given the positions that he had in our country at the time. And what I found very interesting about him was he is kind of the beginnings of religious freedom. We found this at the end of Query 17 in the reading. Notes on the state of Virginia. And we just get a quick blurb there from Query 17. But there's a very interesting quote where he actually talks about the amount of chaos and turmoil that has been caused from trying to create this religious uniformity. And we haven't done it. I mean, we can just take a look back at the Salem witch trials, for example, about how brutally people are treated. And he is one of the first ones of expressing that, you know, there's so many other religions out there. We need to do something new. And I thought that that was very interesting for Thomas Jefferson. And this was also the time of the Revolution and becoming new thinkers. And they're starting to look at things a little more analytically than just such a strict religion. So this is a new thought for the time. And finally, we're on to Romanticism, and I took a look at Nathaniel Hawthorne, who is one of our first authors with no professed religion, which is a little ironic, I guess, in a way, because Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote a lot in a way that was critiquing the Puritan religion. And this could be associated with the fact that his great-grandfather was involved in the Salem witch trials and was one of the leading judges within it, hence the W added to his name. But what I found really interesting was his look at sin in the minister's black veil, and how we're all kind of cloaked in this sin, not inherently good. And I grabbed here one of my favorite quotes from that piece. It was at the bottom. I've used it in a couple of my essays so far. I think it's just really interesting how people will put something on somebody else just to kind of escape their thought. And I liked the way Hawthorne wrote this story, in that we kind of followed the minister, but we also saw how other people thought and reacted to him. And at the end, we never found out. I mean, I kept reading because I wanted to find out why he was wearing it. But at the end, we're meant to figure out what it is all on our own. And throughout the story, even the reader themselves kind of puts themselves in the town people's position, trying to figure out what this minister has done, even though he hasn't really professed to doing anything. So yeah, these are my final works cited pages. And that's the last one.